Now what's this gonna be? You know how I played it all. That nigga burning G. All by his bread. Bitch, I'm all about my bread. All by my bread. Bitch, I'm all about my bread. All by my bread. Now what's this gonna be? You know how I played it all. That nigga burning G. All by his bread. Now bitch, I'm all about my bread. All by my bread. Now bitch, I'm all about my bread. All by my bread. Now bitch, I'm first green ballin', tryna get my bread long. You know the game gone and my mind been blown. Different decisions that I done made got me fucked up now. Still gon' thug the life I'm living, still gon' hold this shit down. Every day of my life, yeah, nigga chasing cheese. And the same niggas that be around, they won't see you off your feet. My mama been doing bad, but I ain't going into that. I done picked that girl up when I caught my first package. I be paying me and my people hurting for something for a day. That shit happened, the next man ain't getting nothing. Faded the root of evil, and that's my damn best friend. And I put that on my life, ain't nobody gon' fuck with him. You try to jam it, yeah, that ass getting chalked. Trying to serve ain't got no business on my block, I bet you're getting chalked. Now either way you try to fuck with my ballers, don't believe that ass getting chalked. Now what's this gonna be? You know how I played it all. That nigga burning G. All by his bread. Bitch, I'm all about my bread. All by my bread. Bitch, I'm all about my bread. All by my bread. Now what's this gonna be? You know how I played it all. That nigga burning G. All by his bread. Now bitch, I'm all about my bread. All by my bread. Now bitch, I'm all about my bread. All by my bread. Now bitch, I'm back in the mix. Them flaky niggas better stand down. Came home, got me some yam, I'm the man now. Niggas, some bitches all from my face, I ain't know who they is. Everybody up from my mix like I'm a hero and shit. Fall back, I'll buy a brick. Right now, I'm on a mission. I'm giving you 2 for 20. Got grams going for 50. Putting that in my pockets, the nigga, you bullshitting. What the fuck you ain't listen? I done told you I got to get it. Nobody depending on me, so it's all mine. I ain't stressing out by myself, that's how it going down. My mama fighting her little dicks and she gon' be alright. Forever tweaking and begging, I put something up on the pipe. It's a little fraction of my life, still all in for a lick. Lurking for fatty, looking for niggas to tone mix. Start to lurking if I'm hurting, different side come out. That flip shit, talk to Jacob, Mr. High, come out. Gonna be, you know how I played it all. That nigga burning G.
Yo, thank y'all for tuning back in to your favorite channel. It's your boy Pelican Bay K9s, giving it to you the way I always do. Fair and unbiased, some will like it, some ain't, man. Like I always say, hit that like button up, hit that like button up out there. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You know, big shout out to them brothers and sisters down in the chat and everybody watching the video from afar. Everybody taking care of them dogs, like I always say. You know, today I'm talking about, and we're going to touch on the Bolio dogs, you know. And I want to speak specifically about the way Indian Sonny was breeding his dogs and Pat Patrick was breeding the Bolio dogs. You know, they was running 2 different strains of dogs themselves outside of the Bolio dogs, you know, and we're just going to look at the pedigree because I think, I think, Pat Patrick with his breedings, you know, he had more historical breedings than I'm going to say than Indian Sonny. You know, he had more historical breedings, but at the same time, if you look back in the pedigree, which we're going to do at Indian Sonny's breedings that he was making, he was breeding more like I would be breeding. He took pure dogs, pure Eli dogs, and bred them to Bolio himself. You know, and that would have been the way I would have been breeding. But we just gonna check these pedigrees out, man. And I got a question, like, nobody, when Patrick came to give an interview, great dog man, did some great things in his days in the dog game, but nobody felt like the need to ask him, did he feel bad about having another man dog, knowing it's another man dog? And a lot of people it wouldn't make a lot of people lose any sleep. But at the end of the day, we just gotta ask, how did you feel knowing you had another brother dog, and we say this dog game is supposed to be a gentleman's sport. That's why I always say which area was it a gentleman's sport in? Because people been doing shiesty stuff throughout the years. You just gotta catch on to it, or hear the stories about it, or hear these old schoolers that want to come up and tell these stories about it. There's a lot of old schoolers that a lot of these old school brothers, they giving them passes. I say it like that. They're giving them passes because if they come out and tell the real story on some of these dudes, you wouldn't have the respect for them that you have when it comes to these dogs and how they bred these dogs. Now, first thing we're going to do, we're going to look at this Bolio pedigree. And what I'm going to do, hold up, let me take this off. All right. What I'm going to do, we're going to go into offspring. We're going to go into Bolio's offspring first. And what we're going to do, we're going to find the ones that Indian Sunny bred and see how the females look that he bred to Bolio. We got Indian Boots right here. When we click on Indian Boots, we see that's coming directly off Eli Jr. and the bottom side is unknown. Bottom side unknown, top side coming off Eli Jr. That's Indian Boots, bred to Bolio. So we go to Indian Sandy, sorry. We got a pure Boudreaux's Eli dog, top and bottom. Or we can say a pure Boo's dog or Bo's dog, top and bottom. That dog was bred back to Bolio. Now let's look at the pedigree of that dog. Indian Sandy, bred back to Bolio. H&H Aunt Jane. Now you see the way that pedigree is built, man? He had a goal in mind when he was breeding Bolio. That's why I say when folks steal people dogs or when folk have other people dogs, you really don't know the game plan they have with their dog. You don't know how to breed the dog in the way that they was going to breed it or the vision that they had for that particular dog. Now, when we go to Champion Indians Bloomers, it's a daughter of Bolio coming back to a 50-50 Bolio dog. So in this particular breeding, we got about 50% of Bolio genetics in this dog. If we using ped stats, about 50% Bolio. That's because we got 25% on the top and 25% on the bottom. Hold up, let me make sure I'm calling that right. The top dog is a daughter of Bolio. So that's a 50-50 dog. So Indian Crusher would have been, well, that's about 25%. Yeah, that's a 25% because Bolio didn't breed back to his sister, his daughter. If he would have bred to his daughter, they made the percentages higher, but that breeding didn't come from his daughter. that came from another Eli dog. So that's about, you're gonna end up with about 50% Bolio off of Champion Indians Bloomer. Now when we look at Indian Conda, that's a pure Boudreaux dog, pure Boudreaux Eli dog. You see the difference in how Indian Sunny was breeding compared to how Pat Patrick was breeding? And I'm gonna check out a few of his pedigrees as well. But that was the Conda dog. And we got Sandy again. Let's go to the next page. Stroll down, see if we can find any of the breeders that Indian Sunny made. Indian Blondie. There's no pair for Indian Blondie. Okay, let's go to the third page. And on the third page, we have no more dogs bred by Indian Sunny. So pretty much most of the dogs bred to Bolio was off Pat Patrick stuff, you know. And when it comes to Dirty Mary, let me click on her right here. This isn't the Dirty Mary I wanted to click on. I wanted to click on Boyle's Dirty Mary. When it comes to the Boyle's Dirty Mary dog, you know, one of the most important things in the Boyle's Dirty Mary dog is the fact that she's coming off of one of Bolio's daughters. You know, so when we say balls, sometimes, you know, you gotta look and see how it's bred, because it may be the Bolio that person was striving for, that they bred tight into that stuff. A lot of people, like I said, we use these last names and we think these last names mean one particular thing, when all that last name was the man kennel name. When he had different strains of dogs and he went different ways and try to get certain things from certain dogs. You may say, oh, I want a Boyle's dog, and you go to Bloody Mary route. And you say, I want a Boyle's dog, and you go another route, and you thinking, oh, these dogs should be similar. Well, these dogs may be two different strain of dogs, two different kind of traits, but both of them coming from Boyle's. And that's what people get it confused at. You know, a lot of the times we think, oh, I got a Boyle's dog, then all Boyle's dogs supposed to be doing the same exact thing. You know, it just depends on how they was breeding their dogs. And like I said, I like how Indian Sunny, you know, pretty much was breeding his stuff or breeding his stock. You know, let me put this back up here on the screen, back on Bolio, back up. All right, let's go to Bolio offspring Pat Patrick's Goldie. Now, when we go to Pat Patrick's Goldie, claws dogs, real heavy claw stuff. I see a Balls champion Tacoma in the background right here. Pretty much claws dogs. Let's go to Patrick's Tuffy. Claws dogs. So Patrick's running a lot of the claw stuff. Let's go to Patrick's Faith. Faith is coming off the claws on the bottom, and Myers dog is on the top. I'm not real familiar with that. We're gonna go back to the 4th generation and click on Neblitz Congo and see where these dogs coming from. Okay, these are Kobe dogs. This dog's directly off Kobe's dime. Let's see where this dog right here, Patsy's coming from. Okay, these more Kobe dogs. So we going way back in the time now. We're going way back in the time. We're gonna come back up a little bit. And we gotta expect to go back in time, I guess, when we talking about Bolio, because Bolio, was born from the 60s to the 70s, or was living through the 60s to the 70s. So I guess we gotta expect to go back in them days. Let's go up under Patrick's Neal. Patrick's Neal is coming down off the Tater Dog on the top, which Patrick spoke about in one of his interviews he did with Bubba Max. And the champion Mason's Hog on the bottom. And Johnston's Goofy. Click on Johnston's Goofy, see what he's coming down off of. Some Tudor dogs. Pretty much scattered red. And like I said, we getting way back in them days. There's no telling what them dogs was off of back then. But what do y'all brothers think, the best Bolio crosses? And mostly everybody gonna say Pat Patrick made the best Bolio crosses because that's all we have to work with. You don't really see anybody, period, with a full pedigree of Bolio dogs, and they coming off of Indian Sonny Bolio stuff or his crosses that he made. It says Indian so and so dogs. You don't see that. And like I said, a lot of the times, some of the best dogs would have came from the brothers who own these dogs. Like Mr. Chavis Jocko. If Mr. Chavis would have bred Jocko to Jeep daughters or Eli daughters and different things, later on down the line, he would have knew what to take them dogs to. But once he sells Jocko to somebody else, they may not know exactly what to take it to, or they may have a different vision for the dog, And when you look at the way these brothers both bred the dogs, between Pat Patrick and Indian Sonny, they had different visions. Their yards had different visions from the start, But at the same time, they had the same vision, which was to win. But I just say, man, Bolio was a great dog. It's a lot of stories behind Bolio. If we had a chance to talk to Indian Sonny about Bolio, I'm quite sure we'll hear a whole different story compared to the stories that we get. And that's another thing. A lot of brothers use that to their advantage. I mean that they know a lot of people can't speak for these dogs because they either passed away or they just won't come up on the internet. So they won't speak, or nobody can't speak for the dogs. So whatever story you get on these old dogs, it's whatever story you get. Now, if I'm an old schooler, if I was born in the era that Bolio lived, see, Bolio was born before I was born. So if I was living in the Bolio era, there would be nobody that can tell me anything. If I give a brother a story about Bolio, you can't tell me I'm not telling the truth. Because we don't have brothers up here giving you real deal Bolio stories. We have few, but when it comes to the actual owner of the dog, and how it went when he had the dog, and how people did him with the dog, you have a whole different story out here when it comes to Bolio, and how to breed that dog. Not saying Pat Patrick didn't make no great breedings, because he made great breedings, as we all know, when it comes to the Bolio stuff. I'm gonna go back to his offspring again. Okay, let's pull this dog up. Bull Boy Bob, black dog. See, this will we be having questions about these dogs and different things in different colors. And when it comes to colors, I want to say this. to my brothers who got that Big John, Little John stuff, the way I'm running it. We don't throw off brown brindle dogs. You know, and when you're getting brown brindle dogs that look like AAA, that's not a trait from the Big John, Little John dogs. I don't know where that come from. You know, and we're not talking about dogs that came directly off Big John or dogs that came directly off these old school dogs, because some of them may have had brindle in them or may have been brindle, you know. But we talking about modern day dogs. They got these pedigrees of these dogs with no brindle in the line in general, you know. So the Big John, Little John dog is not a brindle throwing dog, you know. Up until the black poison dog was bred into that stuff, they didn't have any of the black dogs coming off that stuff. Now it's black dogs because of the black poison, the poison dog, you know. So let's talk a little bit about Bull Boy Bob, the black Bolio dogs, you know. Could this be where the black Bolio dogs are coming from? And the thing I want to know is, what made this dog black? Is it the Patrick's Tater dog, which we already know is some funny stuff going on between Tater and Little Tater? I'm not sure exactly which one it was that he was speaking about, but it was some funny stuff going on there. So where's the black come from? Is it through the Patrick's Faith dog? You know, is it the Patrick's Faith dog? Because we see Klaus Brindle Dan. So we know these dogs have brindle black colors in them. Okay. So just so happened that these dogs get this black color from, you know, the bottom side of these dogs. Okay. Now, in the Bolio strain of dogs, how many people really ran a black yard of Bolio dogs since Bolio was living? You know, or a Bull Boy Bob yard. How many people ran a yard strictly based off Bull Boy Bob to where they getting all black Bolio dogs? Now I will say this, you know, when it comes to these pedigrees, if there's a black dog in the pedigree, then I don't got no argument with the pedigree, period. You know, the only argument we can have with these Bolio dogs, say for instance, the pedigree that I was arguing about with the hog pedigree, with hog bred back to another dog coming off the Mayday stuff with the Sammy the Arab Boomer in it as well. When you breed all that together, you shouldn't get dark colored dogs. You know, now I'm not going back to Bull Boy Bob. If I go back to Bull Boy Bob, yeah, it should be a black dog in my pedigree. If I go back to Mayfield dogs, yeah, it should be black dogs in the pedigree. When I say Jocko dogs or Red Boy Jocko dogs, then okay, yeah, we get a Red Boy Jocko dog out of that Big John stuff, and it don't got none of that black poison paladin stuff in it at all. Strictly Big John, Little John, and it come out black. And then I tell y'all, brothers, yo, this a pop-up throwback dog coming back from the Mayfield stuff. That is unbelievable. That is not true. You need to get a DNA test on that dog, as ADBA would tell you. You know, ADBA would tell you get a DNA test on that dog. So Bull Boy Bob is a reason for black dogs to be there in the Bolio stuff. But the particular line of Bolio dogs I was talking about wasn't based off the Bull Boy Bob stuff. You know. So where does the black Bolio dogs come from? Like the brothers asking across the dog community. Now, one thing I will say, a brother showed me a Bolio dog that had the Willow Pink markings on it that I spot in 2025. You know, and this is an older dog that he showed me. And you know, the pedigree, the way the pedigree say, you know, that particular marking gotta come from the Bolio side. So you know, if it's a black dog in the pedigree and it ain't going back 50 years, you see, Bolio was born in the 60s. So Bull Boy Bob would have been running through the 70s, throughout the 70s. So you telling me, any dog man with legitimate sense gonna tell me that black will pop back up in my dog from the 70s? If I were bred away from the black since the 70s, you telling me because I'm inbreeding that it's gonna pop back up? And we talking that'll be 50 some years later. That's not right. For anybody to try to push that on any dog man in modern day time. That's why I say you can only really worry about the first, second, third, fourth generation. When we start talking about 30 years, 40 years, if you're not line bred, consistently line bred throughout that time, then somewhere or another, you got other genes and traits up in there that you need to be worried about and focused on. You know, when it comes to Bull Boy Bob, who would the old schoolers say he took his genes from, his traits from, when they looked at him? Would they look at him and say, would Indian Sonny or Mr. Patrick look at him and say, he looked like a black Bolio, just like a black Bolio himself? Where does that black come from in him? And the thing about it, we don't have no pictures on a lot of these old dogs, so it's whatever it is when it comes to that. But the thing about it, man, like I said, a lot of these old schoolers did it, and we gonna touch on that on another video as well. A lot of these pedigrees, they ain't right. They wasn't right before we even got the dogs. The pedigree's been wrong. That's why you got to focus on what you got in your yard and what is breeding and what is making. And like I said, I think myself, my personal opinion, I think Patrick made more historical breedings with the Bolio dogs, but I think Indian Sonny had a different way of breeding, and his story never got out on why he was breeding that way. And like I said, I asked before, where are the Bolio Eli dogs? That's where the Bolio Eli dogs are at. Indian Sonny was making them. He was the one doing the Eli Bolio crosses. But over time, and when you lose these stories and brothers pass away, things get forgot about, and lives get told, and stories get changed, man. Stories get changed. But I ain't gonna hold y'all brothers here too long. Just giving y'all some Bolio talk, man. Talking about them Bolio dogs today, and just touching up a little bit. I want y'all to pay attention. Just go back and look at the difference in the breedings between Indian Sonny and Pat Patrick doing their Bolio breedings. Y'all stay safe out there. Y'all stay legal out there. PB K9s, and we out.